Chapter 20. Just after 6 the following morning, the hotel telephone in his room was ringing loudly. Steve had been up since 5 and was already washed, dressed, and on to his second coffee of the day. "Good morning. Steve Lewis here." He was formal. Although it could be business, he was desperately hoping the next voice would be Isla. "Mr. Lewis, this is reception." His heart sank. "I'm sorry to wake you, but I have a call for you from Miss Isla Kelly. She asked if she could be connected. I am so sorry if I've woken you up." "Yes! No bother, thank you. Please go ahead and connect the call." A long moment of silence followed. Steve was desperate that it was nothing more than a long connection process and that Isla had not been cut off. The silence was soon interrupted by a soft voice at the end of the line. "Hello, Steve. We really should start memorising room numbers. It would cause a lot less work for the bloke on reception." "Morning. Yes, you're right. Still got breakfast in you?" "Sure. I was hoping you'd call. I doubted you would, though. It's 6 o'clock, right? Do you always phone hotels asking to be connected to men you barely know at this time of the morning?" "Well, I'm not that choosy. In fact, I'm up early as I've just got rid of someone. Forgotten his name already." "Well, in that case, lucky me. Meeting reception in 15, or is that not long enough to wash off last night's fun? Steve, I'm a classy lady who needs time to get ready. I'll see you in 10. She giggled and hung up. Steve smiled. Although it was still early, his body clock was on British summertime, and it was not too early for either decent coffee or a chat with a girl who liked him. He pulled his work bag together and went for breakfast. The frantic New York morning had already taken hold. Large groups of visitors from all over the world jostled around the desk clerks, all demanding to either check in or out at the same time. Among the chaos, the two Brits embraced once again in the same way that they had done the previous evening. It was affectionate, but not over the line. They weren't there yet. "Do you want to go out or stay here? The place looks rammed." "There's a place a few blocks away that Jared recommended yesterday. I'm up for going out if you are." "Who's Jared?" "The guy who screwed things up for me yesterday, but the guy who may go on to make this whole Cormax to America thing a huge success. I'm not sure which way it will go or how I feel about him just yet. Sounds complicated, but let's go with Jared's suggestion. You can tell me all about it." The forecourt was rammed full of coaches with luggage strewn everywhere in a way that made sense to the people loading it but presented ample opportunity for anyone so minded to make off with something that wasn't theirs. Ellen's Stardust Diner was only a few blocks over, and the walk was no time to catch up on the events of the previous day, but was enough for their minds to race with occasional glances and warm smiles. Having slept through the early part of yesterday, Isla had yet to experience New York first thing in the morning, and despite trying to be a casual presence alongside her, Steve was captivated by Isla's captivation, enveloped as she was in these unfamiliar surroundings. The noise of 1,000 car horns was unrelenting. The couple paused to look into the tourist shops which would shortly open for the day to sell their tat to the masses. Each of the shops would try to outdo their near neighbour with more appealing prices for even shinier shit, and it would not be until the punters were long gone before they realised they'd not got the bargain they initially believed they had, and instead had just purchased a ton of useless low-quality crap. Steve and Isla were caught bang in the halfway house between being friends and lovers. Steve had not seen too many love-filled mornings. His numerous sexual encounters were ordinarily simple acts of convenience, shabby, lonely copulations with a girl nice enough to go home with but not one interesting enough to spend the hours of daylight with, and certainly not one you'd take home to meet the parents. There hadn't been any love to speak of since senior school, where one of the posh girls from PHS, the nearby private girls' school, had taken a shine to him. She loved the band, but it might have been the idea of being in love with somebody involved in a band which was where her real attraction started and stopped. But at 16 he felt like he was in love, if only for a while, and he loved the idea that being involved in music had got him the girl. The feeling only lasted a while, just until she bowed to parental pressure to focus on her A-levels, meaning that reluctantly she stopped having time for him or the music. Predictably, they quickly fell apart. It didn't matter how you got the girl, the feeling was the same, the world over when you lost her. It wasn't as though Steve turned against the idea of being in love. It was just not his priority given the simplicity of many other options available. But he was already determined to see Isla differently from his typical transients. It would require effort, which was a new territory for him. Their time together would only come about when they committed to it, but fast approaching 30, Steve knew it was about time he made some effort at something which wasn't work. Evidently, he was not alone in this uncharted water. Although captivated by the frantic New York mornings, Isla seemed determined to explain a bit more about what she was feeling. Not having been in many truly romantic situations herself, she didn't know much about the ways of love, and like Steve, was struggling to put it into a box. But how to sound hopeful without being over-keen and potentially frightening someone off. There were guide ropes outside the entrance of the diner, ready for the morning throng that would imminently descend at the illustrious old-style Rockabilly Diner. While 7 a.m. was too early for most people, the tourist masses would arrive soon, almost always tired and certainly hungry, eager to consume and be entertained, whatever time of day it was. They arrived just as the doors were opening and immediately were seated in one of the booths in the centre of the floor. The waitress glided over to them on roller skates. With Broadway just outside the door, it was inevitable there would be sooner or later some kind of performance. A prominent sign announced that Ellen's had been bringing joy to the customers for 10 years. The way Jared had spoken about it, the diner was part of New York folklore and had been open for generations. "I've never seen a menu like this, have you?" asked Isla. "I've no idea where to start. I only want some eggs. Who orders a half-pound chili burger and fries at this time in the morning?" There were so many choices that it took some time to even find the breakfast section. A few years back, I was booked into a hotel in Milan, a really posh one by the main station. All sorts of people were in there, immaculately dressed businessmen and politicians in the most perfectly created tie knots. They started their day with thimbles of coffee and endless cigarettes. It was the oddest place I've ever had breakfast, partly because no one was eating, and despite being really posh, it was just a fog of smoke. "What were you doing in Milan?" "You know the score. Another band, another gig, another hotel. When you dip in and out of places as part of work, it could be anywhere. It's not like you spend any real time there." Isla nodded. It sounded like a mirror of the last year and the endless racing around European airports. The thing was about this place, when I asked for the menu, they didn't have one. They didn't serve anything for breakfast other than coffee and cigarettes, and seemed confused by a guest wanting food. Based on this trip, that would never happen in America. I ended up coughing my way out of the place and grabbing heavy bread from the station opposite. Never again. At least the Hiltons all offer something to eat, even if it is the same thing in every country. One size fits all and all that. They both continued to stare at their surroundings, captivated at how this recently empty room was now bustling with activity. The previously empty tables had quickly filled up with mostly jet-lagged tourists, eager to immediately experience the city. Steve was doing the talking and was trying to keep the flow going, but Isla was quieter than Steve had previously seen her, and having asked if she was all right, she hinted with a touch of sadness that their brief liaison had to end so soon. "So, you said that yesterday was mad. What happened?" Steve explained the events of the previous day, alluding once more to the fact that he had to be at the office in a short while. Isla felt bad for abandoning him the night before. The conversation was an unnecessary confessional for two busy people whose lives were getting in the way. Suddenly they were interrupted by a waitress with coffee and an eagerness to take their main order. "Paris wins for the rudest," Isla blurted out. "You what?" Steve was still focusing on the menu. "If we're doing travel experiences, then I want to play. I may not be as old and as wise as you, but like you, I've also had a load of miserable travel experiences." Once more, they were back to being relaxed in each other's company, as the conversation returned to being a two-way exchange. "At least the waiters appear in Paris, even if they're the snootiest and least forgiving in Europe. But try annoying an old Scottish woman in Falkirk. At one B&B, I got abused for appearing too English. I swear she deliberately burnt my white pudding." "White pudding? What's that?" "I don't recommend it, especially in Falkirk. In fact, I don't recommend Falkirk full stop. The things we do for work." With no white pudding on the menu, they ordered the simplest breakfast choice available, eggs and bacon. And their expectations turned to disappointment at the unimpressive feast. It arrived suspiciously fast and tasted incredibly bland. It wasn't even obvious what type of eggs they'd been served. They could have been fried first and then mashed up, or just badly scrambled without seasoning. Whatever it was, they were far too dry and explained the American obsession with ketchup. There seemed little point in complaining, though, as despite the number of customers waiting for service, the staff suddenly all jumped up onto the tables and bar, performing a jive bunny-like mash-up dance. "I'm expecting Henry Winkler to wander in at any moment," Steve joked, turning to the door in expectation as the loudest of the staff picked out a customer who was told to holler into the microphone on request. The chosen couple were either from South or Central America and had no understanding of English, and, as such, the participation exercise was lost on them. Like the eggs, the early morning entertainment had quickly fallen flat. "So," Steve took the conversation towards its predictably disappointing end, "I really have to start making a move. I'm so sorry this is so short." "I know. I've only got a few hours left myself, but I've already checked my schedule and will be in Boston this Friday. Then I'm back here at the end of next week. Will you be around? The band arrive here tomorrow. I know we'll be around for a few days, but then we're heading to Baltimore, or it may be Boston. It's still falling into place, but I'm sure it begins with a B, so unless you're back here by Monday, I think I'll be gone." "Afraid not. I'm not here until next Thursday night. I'll ask for you when I get here. You never know." I will have a US phone by Monday and I'll make sure to leave a new number at reception. But you have my card, don't you? It's got my email address on it, so please message me. Please. They stood outside the diner. The unrelenting weight of traffic continued to crawl past them. They embraced, sharing the sort of polite but affectionate kiss that could have easily turned into much more. Both were determined that this was just going to be a gap in a fun couple of days. Whatever portal they had opened 2 days ago remained firmly open. There had been a strong emotional connection, and both of them shared a desire for more. There was no way anything less than more was going to be enough. But for now, they were friends, and the departing embrace reflected that. Steve pulled away first and headed to his office. The business of the trip was about to begin in anger. As they walked in different directions, they both independently took a moment to glance back. As their eyes met once again, they both knew that whatever this was, it felt real. Real enough to already start hoping for the next time.